Hello. In this course, we're going to learn the basics of video editing with Adobe Premiere Rush. Premiere Rush is a more simple version of Adobe Premiere Pro, and one of the great things about it is that unlike Premiere Pro, it will allow you to save to the cloud, to your Adobe Creative Cloud account, and that way you can edit it on other machines and not just the one that you started your project on. In addition to that, you can also edit on mobile devices. So you can edit on a phone or a tablet or a desktop computer, and because it's saved to the cloud, you can move back and forth between those devices. So it's pretty great that way. And so when you first get to your first screen, it's going to look something like this, and you'll want to go ahead and create a new project. You're going to see this screen if you've already created another project. If you have not, you're going to see a little bit different screen, which I'll show you in just a second. But before we get to that, I want to point out this Learn button. Now, if you want to learn more about Premiere Rush, Adobe has some good tutorials that will walk you through step by step how to do different things. So you can use that to learn more. Now, you go ahead and hit Create New Project, and this is probably what yours will look like the very first time that you open it. Now, if you can remember to do so, you want to go down here first of all and name your project. And then the next thing it's asking you to do in this screen is basically to identify where you're going to get your different assets from, your video clips, your images, your audio, and those types of things. So it wants to start the project with something in it. And so you need to tell it where you've saved all of those things. So if we move in to the folder you're going to use, right? You can, select. You can hold down Control and select different pieces. You can click on one end and shift click the other and grab them all. Or you can just simply drag a box around everything and then go ahead down here on the bottom right and hit Create. Once you do that, it's going to start importing all of those assets into Rush. And it automatically populates those things into the timeline, as you can see down here. Now, before we look at the workspace, a couple things I want to point out. So up here on the top left, you'll see a little home button, right? If you click on home, it's going to take you back out to where all of your projects live. And you can see the one that I just named, Rush Basics, lives there as well. And if you notice that you didn't spell it right, like I didn't, you can click these three dots, you can rename it. But in addition to that, there's a couple important things. You could come here and delete your project if you would like to. You can duplicate it if you want to have a new project and just make a few changes to it. But one very important thing is to turn the sync on. Now you'll notice these projects just have a monitor. That means they only are locally on the computer or device you're working on. The ones with the cloud on the monitor have been backed up or synced with the cloud, and that way you can open these projects on any device. And so if you want to do that, you need to make sure and go out and hit those three dots and turn the sync on. It will then take a second and send the project and all of those files into the cloud so that you can then access those on any device. And once that's finished, and it will take, more or less time depending on the amount of assets that you're using in your project. So we'll give it just 1 second. Once it's done that, you'll see there's now a cloud there, and you know that it's actually syncing or backing up to the cloud. So you then can come back in, click on your project, and this works for any of your work. You can click on the project, it'll reopen inside of the workspace. Now here on the left, there's a little file box looking icon. Click on that, that's going to show you all of the different assets that you have inside of your project. Got a lot of different pictures here. If you have a video clip and you move your mouse over or scrub over, it'll show you a little bit of the clip. You can also, hit the three dots. You can open it up. You can add it to your timeline, but they've already been added here. If you want to add more assets, you can click the plus button to add media, and it's going to ask you what you want to add. If you want to add media and import it directly, if you want to add a graphic or audio or voiceover, which we'll do later on, but that's where you can also add things. So let's go ahead and collapse that by clicking on that same icon. And then down here in the timeline, if I take my current time indicator, this marker, I can drag it through and see what has been put together so far. If there's something you don't like, you can click on it, you can hit delete on your keyboard. You can also rearrange the clips by simply dragging over them. Right? So maybe this clip is a bit too long. I can click and drag down if it's a video clip, and I'm basically cutting off the end of that clip. Let's do the same thing here. I'm going to shrink this down. And maybe I don't want this clip, so I can click on it and hit delete on my keyboard, and it'll go away. And we've got a few other clips here that we'll just leave for now. But for example, if we wanted this clip sooner, I can click and drag on it and move it and just drop it where I want it to be placed in the timeline. Now, as for these icons on the side, this first one, the scissors, will let you split a clip. So for example, this music is extremely long, right? The video itself ends around 35 seconds, but the entire video would actually go around 2 minutes because the audio continues. So you'd have, a minute and 30 seconds of black video. So you can either click and drag to shorten it, or if you put your marker where you'd like to cut it and it's selected, you can click on the scissors and you can cut that clip in half, and then just once again hit delete on your keyboard to delete it. It's difficult to work on a very small timeline. You can't really see as well. So there's a couple things you can do. You can hit the plus or minus keys on your keyboard to zoom in, or you can just grab the dot on this scroll bar down here, click and drag, and that will zoom in or zoom out on your timeline so you can see better what you're doing. Here on the left, in addition to those scissors that allow you to split, you can duplicate a clip. So for example, if I select this clip and I hit duplicate, it's going to give me a second copy of that same clip. The trash can, let's go ahead and duplicate that again. The trash can will remove or delete items, and you also have got the expand audio track. So if we click on that, you can see it actually opens up the audio track for the video clips, and we only got this one with audio. Go ahead and close that down. If I click on the music and hit expand, you can see it makes it larger so we can see the waveform. And then finally, down here on the very bottom, this gives you track controls. So you can open up the track and do different things to it. So for example, you got multiple video tracks you can use. It's not just the one. So if I were to take this clip and put it on top, you can see it's actually above. And let me go ahead and shrink this down just for a minute. You can see both clips at the same time. If I hit the eyeball next to it, that's going to hide that clip or whatever that is. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink that or size that back, put it back where it goes. You can also mute a track. So if I play my music, if I hit the spacebar or the play button, you can hear there's some music in there. And if we hit mute right here, hit the speaker, that will mute. And now when I play, you don't hear anything. You can see it's grayed out. You can also lock a track. If you don't want to accidentally move things or you don't want to mess anything up, you can lock a track while you're working somewhere else. Now, beyond that, you can also record a voiceover down here on the bottom. So if you go ahead and arm a track for recording, so there's nothing in the second track. So if you hit the button here, you can see it arms that for recording. You can then click it again to record. Now, if I record right now, it's going to play the music at the same time, and it's going to record it with my voice. So I would probably want to mute the music, and then you can start talking. So for example, let's go back to this second track, arm it for recording, tap it again. It'll give you a countdown. This is a recording, and we are talking about the mountains, apparently. And then you can stop it whenever you're ready, and you can see it actually did play right then. But we go ahead and listen to this. We are, go ahead and mute this. Whoops. Apparently I didn't hit the right button. I didn't mute it before, but we are talking about the mountains. And you can see it actually did play the music in the background because I hit the record button instead of the mute button. And you can work with that. You can delete it. You can move it and do those types of things. So we'll record a bit more audio later to put in. So let's go ahead and unmute that. And that's the the basic track controls over here on the side and how you do basic editing. Now, as for here, you can go ahead and drag through here. This is just another slider that takes you to the timeline. You've kind of got your time code here that shows you how long your video is. And you can, full screen your work here. You can loop it, change the aspect ratio. Maybe you're working on a different size for a different platform for social media or something like that. You can do those things here. And then as for the different tools and controls and effects you have, those all live over here on the right side. So the first one we'll look at is how to create a title. So here on the top, you can click on the graphics icon, and that will open up this graphics workspace. So you can go ahead and hit add graphic, and that will open up a bunch of pre-built titles that you can use inside of your video. They're categorized, right? You've got main titles, you've got transition type graphics, you've got overlays, and all sorts of things like that. You can click on browse, and you can find them like this. If we want more titles, I can click on more. It's going to give me a whole bunch of things. And you kind of scroll through them and see what they do. If you can't find what you like, you can always search. So I want something basic. So I'm going to click on basic. You see it opens up, and maybe we'll take this, and I'm simply just going to click on it and hit add. That will place it in my timeline wherever my marker is. And for this particular title, let's go ahead and move this back. We'll shrink it down just a little bit. You can see it added the white text, but it also added kind of a semi-transparent black box. And they're all going to have different elements, and the nice thing is you have control over those elements. So with the title selected, you now have controls. So you can change the type of font that you're using here. All right, so you can find something that you like. You can get the idea, hopefully. And then from there, let's go ahead and go back to how it started. You can see that we have the title controls, and we've also got the shape controls in this case, which is this semi-transparent background. And you might have other things depending on the type of title that you use. Maybe you're using a lower third title to show somebody's name or something. You'll have different shapes. For this, however, I don't really want this here. I could just go into this shape layer. I can uncheck that box and it will go away. But you do have other controls over this, right? You can change the color. You want some reddish background, or maybe you want it to be a little more cool, and you can do things like that. You can put an outline on it, you can put a shadow on it, but in this case, I actually want to leave that off. So title, you can change the font size. Depending on what that font is, you might have different things like black and italicized and things like that. You can change the color, and if you want a color from the image itself, you can actually hit the eyedropper here, and you can move through and find something that you think will look good, and you can see it's actually going to apply that. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as white. So if we open that back up, you can also do things like add an outline, and maybe in this case we actually will add an outline. So let me go ahead and grab some of that brighter green, and we'll, you can turn the outline up or down, make it a little thicker or thinner, and you can add a text shadow to kind of pop it off the page, and then change how see-through, or change the opacity on that shadow, and how far away it is. You can change the character spacing, how far apart your letters are, or your line spacing if you've got multiple lines. So you've got a lot of control over the graphics, even though they're pre-built. So we'll go ahead and leave that title there. That looks great. In fact, we need to actually edit the title. That would be helpful. So let's go the mountains. Great. Okay, title looks good. All right, on to the next section. The next one is the effects. So if we click on the effects tab, you've got a few different things you can do here. You've got transitions, which are just the effects that take you from one shot to the next shot. So if I've already got something selected and I click on a transition, it will automatically apply that transition to that clip. And you can see if I play this now, it's going to slowly fade in and slowly fade out because I put a dissolve, which is basically like a fade on it. If you don't want one of those transitions, you can click on it and you can delete it. Or if you want maybe to happen for longer, you zoom in here, you can click on it and you can change the duration here to make it go longer, or you can actually click and drag the transition itself. You can also drag and drop transitions on if you'd like to, and you can do it that way. So we can fade that in, fade it out. That's great. So there's a lot of different transitions that you can experiment with there. The next effect is pan and zoom. So you can zoom in and zoom out on different clips. So for example, let's take this next clip. I'm going to activate the pan and zoom. And you've got a couple different things you can set here, the starting point and the ending point. So maybe I want to slowly zoom in over, on this point here. I'm going to go to the beginning here. I'm going to click on my clip, and my starting frame, you can see it zoomed in just a little bit, so it takes up the whole entire frame. And then maybe I want my ending point to be just a little tighter, like that. So we're going to start at this size, and we're going to slowly zoom in to this size in this location. So we go back and play it, you can see that will actually happen. And it looks pretty good. And you can do that as many places as you want. So let's do this one in reverse. I'm going to click here, I'm going to activate it, and go ahead and open that back up, go to end, go to start. It's not actually showing up anymore. Although, there we go. Just took a second. So maybe you want the starting point, and it's already actually doing it, is in reverse. So maybe we want to start in a little tighter, kind of showing the lake, and then we zoom out to kind of reveal the grand, the mountains there. So I click on the end point, and actually go up a little bit so we can see the top of those mountains. And this one will then go from kind of tight on the lake, and kind of pull out, and then you can see everything. So you can zoom in and zoom out on your images as well. And then the last one is auto reframe, which in this case we're not actually going to use. But auto reframe will allow you to, if you're changing your aspect ratio, like the size or the dimensions of your video, it's going to help you kind of keep the most important parts on screen in the center and things like that. Next up, we have got the color section. Inside of the color section, there are some built-in preset looks or colors that you can automatically apply, like color filters, if you want to think of them that way. You can click on any of these, and you can see that it's going to, apply some, in some cases, some very dramatic effects. If you find one that you think you like, but you think it's just a little too much, you can always decrease the intensity down here or increase the intensity down here as well. And then you can, if you find one and you want to tweak a little bit more, you can go into edit, or if you want to do it completely on your own, you go ahead and hit none, and you can go into the edit section right here, and it's going to give you some basic controls over the exposure and the colors and all that kind of stuff. So for example, right, the exposure is going to let you change the overall amount of light in the image. So maybe you want to just bring that up just a bit. Contrast is the overall difference in like the lights and the darks. So for example, I pull that down, you can see it gets kind of darker, a little more faded. Pull it up, gets a little more pop to it. So I'm going to pull that up, add some contrast. You can actually click on the numbers as well if you want to dial that in perfectly. Then you've got the highlights. Pull the highlights down just a little bit, kind of make that haze a little more see-through. You can adjust the shadows to bring out some more detail in the shadows if you like. Then you've got your overall color temperature, your cooler tones to your warmer tones. You can always double click on a slider to reset it. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a little more warmth to this. And then you can also adjust the tint, which goes from green to magenta. I'll leave that alone. I think it's in a good place. I do want to turn up the exposure just a little more. And then you've got vibrance and saturation. So here's the difference in the two. They're very similar. They both have to do with the intensity of the color you're looking at. So for example, if I pull saturation all the way up, you can see what it does, right? It doesn't look great, but it really intensifies those colors. If I pull it all the way down, it turns the image to black and white. Now, same thing here. If I pull vibrance all the way up, it's going to do a very similar thing. If I pull it down all the way, you'll notice it goes black and white except for these red tones. They're there just a little bit. Vibrance is the same as saturation basically, but it protects skin tones. So it doesn't have as much of an effect on like the orange and red tones. And that way, maybe if somebody's in your image, like as a person, you might want to use vibrance to protect those skin tones. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn up the saturation just a little bit on these. You can get faded film in here, right? If you want to get a faded film look, stuff like that. You can sharpen your image. Kind of see what that does. You can add a vignette, a white or a black vignette, that kind of burnt edge look to draw the viewer's eye to the center. And you can even feather that. And then if you think you're done, you think it looks how you want it to, there's a switch on the top up here that can show you the before and after look of what you've done. Right? You can also create a preset. If you like what you've done, you want to apply it to more clips, you can create your own preset that you can apply at a later time. So let's go ahead and color correct maybe one more clip. Let's see if there's any in here that really need it. The shot is fairly dull. There's not a lot of light in it. Maybe we can then add a little warmth to this one as well to kind of make it match the others. So once again, we could, select some sort of preset, find something, but just like before, I'm going to go ahead and go to edit and just do this all on my own. Increase the exposure, right? That alone adds a ton to that image, right? Much, much better. Got a little bit of contrast to it. And if you're not sure what all these sliders do, honestly, slide them until you think it looks good. That's what I tell my students a lot of the time. Slide it till it looks good. You'll figure out what it does. So, temperature, right? It's a little on the cool side. Maybe I want to warm that up just a little bit. Vibrance, let's bring out some of those greens. They can pop just a little bit. And we'll maybe add a vignette on this one as well, just a little bit. And so just very, very quickly, we went from that shot to that shot, which makes it look dramatically better. And so if you can teach students to do this, it will really improve the quality of their videos. Okay, the next section is speed. So if we take a clip like this drone shot where we're flying in, we select that clip, you can change the speed of the clip, the entire clip if you'd like, right? We can speed that up. You can see it shortening it because it's now playing faster. So I play it now, it goes quite a bit faster. Let me mute this for the moment. And you can ramp it, you can make it gradually speed up and then gradually slow down if you'd like to. And you can also adjust just a part of that clip. So for example, maybe it's starting to fly in slowly, and then right about this point, and you can see where that's at on the marker. At this point, I want to speed that up to like 1,000%. And I'm going to go just a little bit farther, and then maybe right about there, I want to slow it back down to 100%. So between those 2 points, it should speed up. So let's go ahead and play it and look at it. And that didn't, it actually set it at 100%, so let's try that again. So we're going to go ahead and turn that up to, there we go. We're going to turn that up to 1,000. So you just need to set your in and your out points, and you can adjust the speed. So outside of that, it should be 100. Inside of this, it should be 1,000. I'm actually going to ramp it so it speeds up and slows down gradually. So kind of a cool effect. So you're playing, speeds up for just a second and slows down. And this is something that's really cool to do with action. In sports or something else, you can have it normal speed, and then as soon as an important action takes place, you can slow it down for just a second and speed it back up. So that's something you can do as well. So that's your speed section. And then you have your audio, right? So you can do a lot of things here. If we go and hit browse, you can see that's going to open some different categories of sound. And the nice thing is students don't have to go find all of their audio. They don't have to find their sound effects and their music and all that stuff. There's some free stuff they can actually use inside of Rush that's built in, which is fantastic. In the previous version, you couldn't preview the tracks until you pulled them in, and they've actually updated this, which is really, really nice. And so you're looking for soundtracks here. If you go and hit more, you can click on them and play them, see if you like them or not. If you find one you like, you can go ahead and hit add. It's going to once again pull it, or it's going to add it to the timeline right where your marker is so you can move it around. So let me go ahead and zoom out and look at this. All right, and that's how you'd add music. I've got a piece in there we're already going to use, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. But if you're looking for something specific, once again, you can search for it. And it's going to give you a bunch of different sounds based off of your search. There are also sound effects. So maybe we would like a sound effect. So let's go ahead and look at this. I don't know, let's take this clip. We'll put in some I don't know, birds chirping or something. Right, you like that? You go ahead and add it. And you can see it's going to put in that track down below. And I'd like that to actually start right at the beginning of that clip. So I'm going to go ahead and move that. I'm going to shrink it down so it's just the size of that clip. And that sounds pretty good. Now, with the audio, when you select it, you unmute this piece, and you are inside the audio tab, you can see right now it's designating that first piece as music. It recognizes that it's music. If I click on this next piece, and it recognizes it's other. It's not music, it's not voice, so it's other. Right? And then if we go ahead and put in some audio, we're going to arm a track for recording once again, and we'll click on it. School's out. It's summer vacation. Let's get up in the mountains and have some fun. Right? And once again, I forgot to mute my music track before I recorded, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and mute these and listen. School's out. It's summer vacation. Let's get up in the mountains and have some fun. Okay? And if you click on your audio here, let's go back into the audio section, you'll see that that is designated and recognized as voice, which is good. If it's incorrect, you can always change the type here, but you've got some options with your sound, right? You can try to balance it. If there's some background noise, this will try to reduce it, and you can enhance your speech, make your pitch higher and lower, and do different things like that. And you can even see, you know, if it's got a right and a left channel, and different things like that. So another nice feature is, you know, if you click on your music, for example, you can do something called auto ducking. Now, if the music is too loud for the recording, right, instead of manually having to try to make it more quiet and more loud and stuff like that, you can actually click on auto duck, and it will recognize wherever the voice is, and you can see right here actually on this waveform, it will, let me open this up and see if I can show you, expand that track. You can see it's actually dipping the music volume down while the voice is happening, and then it brings it back up so it doesn't overpower the voice. And you can adjust how much it's doing that by right here. So if we go put in, I don't know, let's try 80, see how it sounds. School's out. It's summer vacation. Right, and you get the idea. Once again, important to mute the music track while you're recording your voice, because if you move it, it's not going to line up correctly. But that allows you to automatically duck the music down while the voices are playing and makes it sound a lot better. The last section to look at inside of here is the crop and rotate. It gives you different properties for your clips themselves. So for example, let's get to a clip here. If we take this clip and select it, we've got a lot of things we could do, right? You've got fit and you've got fill. Fill is what it's doing. It's touching the top, bottom, left, and right, all edges. So it's probably zoomed in a little bit more than 100%. And then fit, you'll either see the left and right, or you'll see the top and bottom, depending on which side is longer. So depending on how you like it, you can use either of those. You've got the basic section here, so you can actually, if you want to do it manually, you can click on the clip, and you can, manually go ahead and size it and move it and things like that, and you can rotate it. But you've also got those same controls inside of the transform panel. So you can move it horizontally, vertically, you can rotate it. You can even change the opacity if you've got multiple clips on there or something like that. You can mirror it, you can flip it upside down or sideways, things like that as well. Maintaining the proportions basically just means if you size it, will all size together. If I take that off, I can now kind of distort the image. It's going to make that fit. And then we've got an advanced section. So you can crop parts of your assets. Maybe I want to cut the top of it off. I can just scroll down there and you can cut any of those off, and you can also feather the edges, kind of soften the edges if you'd like as well. So Premiere Rush is quite powerful for being simple. The nice thing is that it's intuitive and students can figure it out pretty quickly and easily, and it's easy to edit on tablets and phones as well. So it's built to be mobile, which is nice. Now, when you are finished and you would like to be done with your video and export it in a way that everybody can see, then you're going to go here to Share, right? So from Share, right, you can send it straight to YouTube, you can send it to Facebook, Instagram, Behance, anything like that, or you can just save it locally to your computer or your device. So you go ahead and give it a name, and then you need to designate the location where it's saving to. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the same folder we were in, and that sounds good. And it's telling you the estimated file size here. If you want to change the settings on like the preset of how big it's sending out, right now it's 1080, we could send it out to 720, we can try to do 4K or whatever. You know, frame rate set at looks like 25. You want to set this out at 24. And you know, high quality, maybe I want to set it as a lower quality or so, you know, medium quality instead of high quality. You can adjust all of those parameters. And here's the thing to pay attention to. If you do change one of these in the advanced settings, it resets where you're saving to, something to be aware of. So you then want to go back in and adjust where that's saving to. So if I select that, I can go ahead and export it, and it's going to go ahead and send that file out for me. And it's typically pretty quick, but it's all dependent on how many clips you have in your timeline. You can then play it here in the Explorer if you want to see your video. School's out. It's okay, or you can go find wherever it's at, and it should be in that exact same folder that you told it to stay in. And in my case, it is. It's right here. There's my video. Now, one more thing to point out is the settings up here on the top. Right. So most of these you can get to with your tools, or you got a help menu. You can get to the tutorials in the same place. You can view your different controls up here on the top. Your different tabs. They give you shortcuts to access all these tools. Your sequence, you can zoom in, zoom out, change the aspect ratio. All that stuff lives here. You can split things, apply transitions, all those same things we covered. One thing I do want to point out though is inside of Edit, you can go to the Preferences, and if something's not working, like your microphone or your speakers or something, you can adjust those here. So in my case, I got my speakers selected here, but you can change those to something else. And then my microphone is here, and I've got different microphones, so you can select the devices that you want to use. And so that is Adobe Premiere Rush in a nutshell. I think it's a good software to start students out with. It allows them to be able to just quickly edit videos without a huge learning curve, and kind of introduces them to the very basic tools of titles and color correction and basic effects and transitions and things like that. And then once they master this, they can then move on to Premiere Pro and start working on higher end projects with more effects and things like that. But this way they can, if they're somewhere and they need to edit quickly, they can record on their phone, instantly just import that footage into Rush on their phone and start editing, and then come back to it later on another computer. And so it works really, really well that way.